The skies above Shanghai burned crimson as Commander Sarah Chen watched humanity's latest orbital defense platform crumble into debris. From her command center deep beneath the Pacific Defense Complex, she couldn't hear the explosion, but she felt it in her bones. Another piece of Earth's shield, gone. The holographic display before her painted a grim picture. 12 Kraxan dreadnoughts had just breached the outer defense line, their crystalline hulls gleaming with an almost beautiful malevolence. "Status report," she demanded, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around her. The command center buzzed with frantic activity as officers relayed orders and coordinated what remained of Earth's combined defense forces. Lieutenant Park's fingers danced across his console. Last transmission from the Moscow bunker confirms total loss of the European sector. Asian defense grid is operating at 31% capacity. The Americans, he hesitated. "We lost contact with Houston Command 10 minutes ago." Sarah absorbed the news with a tight jaw. 6 months. That's all it had taken for humanity to go from first contact to the brink of extinction. The Kraxan had appeared without warning, their massive ships darkening skies worldwide. There had been no demands, no attempts at communication, just immediate, ruthless attack. "What about Project Oracle?" she asked, turning to Dr. Yumi Tanaka, who hadn't left her station for 3 days straight. The physicist looked up from her screens, dark circles under her eyes. "We're close to something, Commander. The energy signature from their weapons. There's a pattern we didn't see before. If we just had more time." A violent tremor shook the facility, sending loose equipment clattering to the floor. Red warning lights bathed the command center in an apocalyptic glow. "Multiple impacts detected," Lieutenant Park shouted. "They're through the Pacific Shield. Ground forces engaging in Sydney, Manila. And they're everywhere, Commander." Sarah's mind raced. The Kraxan's ground forces were nearly unstoppable crystalline constructs that seemed to repair themselves using materials from their surroundings. Conventional weapons barely scratched them. Nuclear options had been exhausted in the first month, with minimal effect. But humanity hadn't gone down without a fight. "Get me Admiral Zhang," she ordered, but the words had barely left her mouth when another blast rocked the facility. The main display flickered, showing the Admiral's bunker in flames. "Commander," Dr. Tanaka called out suddenly, her voice tight with excitement and fear. "I've got it. The crystalline structure. It's not just their technology, it's them. They're silicon-based, but the lattice pattern is their weakness. A precise resonance frequency could shatter their entire." The ceiling groaned ominously as dust and debris rained down. "We're losing structural integrity," Park reported. 5 minutes until complete collapse. Sarah made her decision. Download everything to quantum storage. All of it. Dr. Tanaka's research, battle logs, everything we know about them. She turned to her communications officer. "Send an encrypted burst transmission to the Kuiper Belt colonies. Authorization, Chen, Alpha 770. "The colonies?" Park asked, confusion evident in his voice. "But they're just civilian mining operations. They're our future now," Sarah replied grimly. She'd helped establish those mining operations herself, hidden facilities built for exactly this scenario, stocked with engineers, scientists, and enough resources to ensure humanity's survival. A contingency plan few knew existed. As her officers rushed to comply, Sarah opened a channel to all remaining Earth forces. "This is Commander Chen. Execute Protocol Omega. I repeat, execute Protocol Omega." The order would trigger the systematic destruction of all military databases and research facilities worldwide. The Kraxan would find nothing useful in Earth's ruins. Dr. Tanaka's console beeped. "Transfer complete. All data secured." The facility shuddered again, more violently this time. Through the chaos, Sarah caught glimpses of her people, some she'd known for years, others just faces in uniforms, all working with determined precision, even as their world literally crumbled around them. "Transmission sent," the communications officer reported. Confirmation received from Outpost Theta. Sarah allowed herself a moment of relief. Even if Earth fell, humanity would survive. And now, thanks to Dr. Tanaka's discovery, they had a weapon. Knowledge that could one day bring down the Kraxan Empire. "It's been an honor," she said, looking at each face in the command center. "Humanity doesn't end here. Remember that." The ceiling began to cave in as the Kraxan weapons found their mark. In her last moments, Commander Sarah Chen stood tall, her eyes fixed on the display showing the quantum data packet racing through space toward the distant colonies. She'd ensured humanity's knowledge would survive, along with its chance for revenge. The facility's final collapse sent tremors across the Pacific seafloor. Above, the Kraxan ships continued their methodical destruction of Earth's cities, unaware that in their moment of triumph, they had sealed their own eventual doom. In the vast darkness of the Kuiper Belt, hidden colonies received the transmission, and with it, the seeds of humanity's resurrection. The last transmission from Earth contained more than just scientific data. It carried humanity's unbreakable spirit, its resilience, and a promise. This was not the end. It was merely the beginning of humanity's most ambitious project, the creation of a weapon that would bring vengeance to those who had shattered their world. As Earth burned, the survivors in the colonies began their work. They would rebuild. They would remember. And one day, they would return. 5 years after Earth's fall, the asteroid designated as Haven 7 hummed with activity. Deep within its hollowed core, Chief Engineer Marcus Wong stood before the massive viewing window of Construction Bay Alpha, watching as automated fabricators assembled another section of humanity's greatest achievement, the ISS Phoenix. The ship's skeleton stretched nearly 2 kilometers, its framework illuminated by the harsh glare of industrial plasma arcs. Even unfinished, it was an impressive sight. Not beautiful. Beauty hadn't been a consideration in its design. The Phoenix was being built for one purpose: to carry humanity's vengeance to the stars. Marcus's tablet chimed with an incoming message. "Engine test in 5 minutes," he muttered to himself, already moving toward the testing chamber. The corridors of Haven 7 were cramped and utilitarian, carved directly from the asteroid's rock. They'd sacrificed comfort for practicality. Every cubic meter of space dedicated to either production, research, or survival. The testing chamber was already crowded when he arrived. Dr. Elena Santos, head of the propulsion team, looked up from her console. "There you are. We've got the prototype quantum core stabilized. If this works, we'll have engines that can outrun anything the Kraxan have." Marcus finished. He'd spent 3 years developing this technology, combining Dr. Tanaka's research from Earth with salvaged Kraxan components. The theory was sound, but theory and practice were often worlds apart. A new voice cut through the pre-test chatter. "I hope you're right, Chief Engineer. We've invested a lot of resources in your project." Marcus turned to find Director Harrison studying the test chamber with his characteristic intensity. The director had been one of the original architects of the colony program, and now he effectively led what remained of humanity, all 30,000 survivors scattered across 5 hidden settlements. "Director," Marcus acknowledged, "come to see if we're wasting your precious resources." Harrison's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. "Come to see if we're ready to start hitting back." The reminder was unnecessary. Everyone in Haven 7 had lost someone when Earth fell. Marcus still kept a photo of his family in his quarters. His daughter would have been 15 now, if she'd survived Shanghai. "Beginning test sequence," Dr. Santos announced. The quantum core hummed to life, its distinctive blue glow filling the chamber. Holographic displays showed cascading data as power levels climbed. "Containment field stable," one technician reported. "Quantum alignment at 97% and holding." Marcus watched the readings intently. This was the furthest they'd gotten. Previous tests had failed long before reaching these power levels. The core's hum deepened, vibrating through the chamber's floor. "Power at 85% of theoretical maximum," Santos called out. No sign of degradation in the lattice structure. Harrison leaned forward. What exactly are we looking at, Wong? A quantum propulsion system that manipulates spacetime itself, Marcus explained, his eyes never leaving the displays. Based on principles we discovered in the Kraxen tech, but refined. More efficient, faster, and more dangerous, Santos added. We're basically tearing holes in reality every time we fire it up. The core's glow intensified. 90% power, someone announced. 95, holding steady at 98%. For a moment, Marcus allowed himself to hope. Then alarms screamed to life. Quantum fluctuation. Santos shouted. The containment field is. Marcus was already moving, his fingers flying across the emergency controls. Venting plasma. Redirect power to the secondary containment grid. The chamber filled with the screech of tortured metal as space itself seemed to twist around the prototype engine. Marcus could feel reality trying to tear itself apart, the very air seeming to ripple. Containment's failing, Santos reported, her voice tight. We need to shut it down. No, Marcus snapped. We're too close. Reroute power from sections 3 through 7. Pump everything we've got into the quantum stabilizers. For 3 terrifying seconds, it seemed like the engine would tear itself, and possibly Haven 7, apart. Then, gradually, the alarms quieted. The quantum core's glow steadied, settling into a constant, controlled burn. Power holding at 99%, Santos reported, disbelief evident in her voice. Containment field, stable. Marcus, we did it. It's actually working. The test chamber erupted in cheers, but Marcus barely heard them. He was staring at the engine, watching the impossible become possible. They'd done more than create a new propulsion system. They'd proven that humanity could match and exceed Kraxen technology. Director Harrison stepped forward, his expression thoughtful. How long until we can install it in the Phoenix? 3 months to scale it up to full size, Marcus replied. Maybe 4 to integrate it with the ship's systems. Harrison nodded. Do it in 2. We just got word from our deep space probes. The Kraxen are expanding again. They're moving into the Centauri system. The celebration died instantly. Everyone knew what that meant. The Kraxen were getting closer to discovering their hidden colonies. 2 months, Marcus agreed. But I'll need more resources, more personnel. You'll have them, Harrison promised. Whatever you need, just get it done. As the director left, Marcus turned back to the prototype engine. Its steady quantum flame reminded him of Earth's last sunset, the day everything changed. Soon, that same technology would power humanity's revenge. Dr. Santos appeared at his side. We should run more tests. Make sure it's stable over longer durations. No time, Marcus replied. We'll have to test it in real conditions. He pulled up the Phoenix's schematics on his tablet, already calculating the modifications they'd need. How do you feel about taking a few shortcuts? Santos smiled grimly. If it means killing some Kraxen, I'm willing to take a few risks. Across Haven 7, word of the successful test spread quickly. In workshops and laboratories, the pace of work increased. The Phoenix was more than just a ship. It was hope given form, a promise that humanity would rise again. In his private quarters that night, Marcus looked at his family photo one last time before storing it away. The time for mourning was over. Now it was time for action. The Phoenix's combat training deck erupted in chaos as Flight Commander Aisha Patel's squadron engaged the simulation drones. Her fighter rolled through a series of impossible maneuvers, quantum engines howling as she pushed the craft to its limits. Behind her visor, sweat beaded on her forehead as she tracked multiple targets through the artificial battlefield. Razor 2, watch your 6, she barked into the comm. Below her, Lieutenant James Cooper's fighter snap-rolled just in time to avoid a simulated Kraxen beam. The energy burst passed through empty space, dissipating against the training deck shields. Thanks, Lead, Cooper responded, his fighter already moving to engage another target. These new neural interfaces take some getting used to. Aisha understood the sentiment. The neural link technology, reverse engineered from salvaged Kraxan fighters, felt alien at first, but it allowed pilots to react at speeds that would have been impossible with conventional controls. They'd need every advantage they could get. "Squadron, form up on me," she ordered, watching as her pilots fell into formation. "Run attack pattern Delta." As one, the 12 fighters moved in perfect synchronization, their quantum drives leaving traces of distorted space-time in their wake. The simulation drones didn't stand a chance. In less than 30 seconds, the exercise was over. "Training sequence complete," the AI announced. "Kill ratio, 100%. Time to completion, record achieved." Aisha allowed herself a small smile as she landed her fighter. Her squadron was ready. Now they just needed the rest of the Phoenix to catch up. The briefing room was already occupied when she arrived. Marcus Wong, the Phoenix's chief engineer, was engaged in what appeared to be a heated discussion with Director Harrison and the newly promoted Admiral Chen, the same Commander Chen who had saved humanity's future during Earth's last stand. "The quantum weapons are stable," Marcus was saying, gesturing at a holographic display. "We've managed to replicate the resonance frequency Dr. Tanaka discovered. In theory, it should shatter their crystalline technology like glass." "In theory," Harrison repeated. "But we haven't tested it against actual Kraxan ships." "That's about to change," Admiral Chen interrupted, noting Aisha's arrival. "Flight Commander, your squadron's performance has been exceptional. How soon can they be ready for a real combat mission?" Aisha straightened. "We're ready now, Admiral." Chen nodded, unsurprised. She touched a control, and the hologram shifted to display a star chart. "Our long-range scouts have detected a Kraxan supply convoy moving through the Proxima system. 3 transport ships, minimal escort. The perfect target for our first strike." "The Phoenix isn't fully operational," Marcus protested. "We're still calibrating the main quantum cannon and the defensive systems. We'll have to be good enough." Chen cut him off. "We're out of time. Our latest intelligence suggests the Kraxan are establishing a permanent base in the Centauri system. If we don't act now, they'll eventually find us." Harrison studied the tactical display. "What's the mission profile?" "A precision strike," Chen explained. "The Phoenix will remain at maximum quantum range, while Razor Squadron deploys to engage the convoy. We test our weapons, gather combat data, and most importantly, we show the Kraxan they're not invulnerable." "And if something goes wrong?" Marcus asked. "If the weapons don't work as planned?" "Then we learn from it," Aisha spoke up. "Better to find out now, with a small target, than during a major engagement." The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. They'd spent 5 years preparing for this moment, building and training in secret. Now they were about to reveal themselves to their enemy. "Very well," Harrison finally said. "Mission is approved. Commander Patel, prepare your squadron. Mr. Wong, you have 48 hours to complete essential systems checks. Admiral Chen, the Phoenix is yours." As the others filed out, Chen held Aisha back. "A moment, Commander." Aisha waited, studying the woman who had become almost legendary among the survivors. Chen's hair had gone completely gray since Earth's fall, but her eyes were as sharp as ever. "Your squadron is the best we have," Chen said without preamble. "But this isn't a simulation. The Kraxan are ruthless, adaptive. They learn from every engagement." "So do we," Aisha replied. "My pilots understand the stakes, Admiral. We won't let you down." Chen's expression softened slightly. "This isn't about letting me down. It's about survival. We get one shot at surprising them. After this mission, they'll know we're out here. They'll come looking for us." "Good," Aisha said firmly. "Let them come. We'll be ready." The next 48 hours passed in a blur of final preparations. The Phoenix's massive hangar bay buzzed with activity as ground crews performed last-minute checks on the fighters. Engineers ran continuous diagnostics on the quantum weapon systems, while tactical officers analyzed every scrap of intelligence about the target. Standing in her fighter's cockpit, Aisha ran her hand along the neural interface panel. The technology felt natural now, an extension of her own reflexes. She thought about Earth, about the family she'd lost when the Kraxan came, about all the families lost. Razor Squadron, pre-flight check. She called over the comm. One by one, her pilots reported ready. These men and women had trained together for 3 years, becoming more than just a unit. They were humanity's spear tip, about to strike their first blow against the destroyers of Earth. Above them, the Phoenix's quantum core hummed to life. The massive ship, longer than some cities, prepared for its first real mission. In the command center, Admiral Chen gave the order that would change everything. Launch stations. The hunt begins. The void between Proxima Centauri's outer planets was absolute darkness. Perfect hunting ground for the Phoenix. The massive warship hung silent in space, its quantum engines idling at minimal power. On the bridge, Admiral Chen watched as the tactical display tracked their approaching targets. 3 Kraxan transport ships, their crystalline hulls gleaming with that familiar, haunting bioluminescence. Range to targets: 30,000 kilometers, the tactical officer reported. Enemy vessels maintaining current course. No indication they've detected us. Chen nodded, her expression carved from stone. Status of Razor Squadron. Ready for launch, Admiral. Flight Commander Patel's voice came through clear and confident. All fighters show green across the board. In engineering, Marcus Wong monitored the quantum weapons power levels with obsessive attention. The technology they'd developed was untested in actual combat. They'd either validate 5 years of work or learn some hard lessons in the next few minutes. Launch Razor Squadron, Chen commanded. Weapons free. Show them what humanity can do. The Phoenix's hangar bay doors slid open silently. 12 fighters streaked into space, their quantum drives leaving barely visible ripples in reality as they accelerated toward their targets. Aisha led her squadron in a wide arc, approaching the Kraxan convoy from above their plane of travel. Remember your training, she transmitted to her pilots. Hit hard, hit fast, and watch for their adaptive responses. These aren't simulations anymore. The first indication the Kraxan had of humanity's survival came when Razor Squadron opened fire. Concentrated beams of quantum energy, tuned to the exact frequency Dr. Tanaka had discovered, struck the lead transport. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, like a sheet of glass hit with a precise hammer blow, the crystalline hull began to crack. Direct hit, Cooper shouted. The resonance weapons work. The transport's hull shattered, fragments spinning off into space as atmosphere vented from multiple breaches. The other 2 transports immediately began evasive maneuvers, their escort ships, smaller crystalline vessels that had been nearly invisible until now, moving to intercept. Razor 3 through 6, continue assault on the transports, Aisha ordered. Everyone else, deal with those escorts. Don't let them call for help. The battle devolved into chaos. The Kraxan escorts were fast, their weapons leaving trails of green fire through space. But Razor Squadron was faster, their neural interfaces allowing the pilots to react with inhuman speed. Cooper's fighter rolled through an impossible series of maneuvers, quantum weapons firing in precise bursts that turned one escort into crystalline dust. On the Phoenix's bridge, Chen watched the tactical display with growing satisfaction. Target the second transport with a main quantum cannon, she ordered. Let's see what this ship can really do. The Phoenix's primary weapon powered up, drawing enormous energy from the quantum core. The beam that erupted from the bow was blindingly bright, a concentrated stream of reality warping force that struck the transport amidships. The effect was devastating. The entire vessel simply came apart, its crystalline structure unable to withstand the resonance frequency at such power. Multiple energy signatures detected. The sensor officer suddenly called out. New contacts emerging from quantum space. Chen's satisfaction vanished. How many? 5. No, 7 Kraxan warships. They're launching fighters. They weren't as unprepared as we thought, Chen muttered. Razor Squadron, disengage and return to base. We've made our point. But the Kraxan had other plans. Their warships accelerated with impossible speed, trying to cut off the Phoenix's escape route. Energy beams lashed out, most missing but one grazing the carrier's shields. The impact sent tremors through the massive ship. Shields holding at 82%, Marcus reported from engineering. But they're already adapting to the frequency. Each hit is more effective than the last. Razor Squadron, execute emergency quantum jump, Chen ordered. We'll rendezvous at the fallback point. Negative, Admiral. Aisha's voice was tight with concentration as her fighter wove through enemy fire. We'll cover your escape. The Phoenix is too valuable to lose. Before Chen could argue, Razor Squadron turned to engage the pursuing Kraxan ships. Their quantum weapons found targets with surgical precision, shattering crystal hulls and forcing the enemy to divide their attention. But the cost was heavy. 2 human fighters disappeared in balls of fire, then a third. Get us into quantum jump position, Chen ordered, her knuckles white on the command chair's armrests. The moment Razor Squadron is aboard, we jump. The Phoenix's engines flared to full power, its massive bulk accelerating with surprising grace. Razor Squadron fought a fighting retreat, each pilot pushing their neural interfaces to the limit. Cooper's fighter took a glancing hit that sheared off one wing, but he somehow maintained control, limping back to the carrier. 4 fighters lost, the tactical officer reported grimly. Razor Squadron is aboard. Jump capability in 3, 2, 1. Space twisted around the Phoenix as its quantum drive engaged. The Kraxan warships fired a final salvo, but too late. The carrier vanished into quantum space, leaving only debris and questions behind. Hours later, in the Phoenix's briefing room, the survivors assessed their first engagement. The holographic display showed detailed scans of the battle, highlighting both successes and failures. The resonance weapons worked better than expected, Marcus reported. But the Kraxan adapt quickly. By the end of the battle, our weapons were only 60% as effective as the first shot. They were waiting for us, Chen mused. Those warships arrived too quickly to be coincidence. They wanted to see what we could do. Then they got a good show, Aisha said quietly. She'd lost 4 pilots, 4 friends, but her squadron had proven that humanity could fight back. What matters is that now they know. The hunters have become the hunted. And we learned something vital, Marcus added, pulling up a particular scan. Their quantum signatures. We can track them now, predict their movements, maybe even find their homeworld. Chen studied the data with intense focus. Begin analysis immediately. We lost the element of surprise, but we gained something more valuable, proof that they can be beaten. She looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes. This was just the beginning. Next time, we hit them harder. As the briefing ended, Chen found herself staring at the tactical display, watching the replay of their quantum weapons shattering Kraxan crystal. 5 years of preparation had led to this moment, and despite the losses, they had achieved something remarkable. Humanity had bloodied the nose of its would-be destroyers. The war for survival had become a war of revenge, and it was only just beginning backslash. The war room deep within Haven 7 had never been so crowded. Admiral Chen stood before a holographic display of the Kraxan home system, its alien architecture rendered in precise detail by months of covert surveillance. Around her, the leaders of humanity's surviving colonies watched in tense silence. This is their heart, Chen said, zooming in on a massive crystalline structure that orbited the system's primary star. Their central hive. Everything we've learned about their civilization suggests this is where they coordinate their expansion across the galaxy. Director Harrison studied the display with a grim expression. And you're certain about this intelligence? We lost 3 stealth probes gathering it, Marcus Wong confirmed from his position near the engineering readouts. But the quantum signatures don't lie. This is where they began, and this is where we end them. The last 6 months had been a brutal campaign of hit-and-run attacks. The Phoenix and its support fleet, now grown to include 5 additional carriers and their fighter squadrons, had struck Kraxan targets across multiple star systems. Each engagement had taught them more about their enemy and cost them dearly in ships and lives. The Kraxan are mounting a major offensive. Flight Commander Patel added, her normally pristine uniform showing signs of recent combat. They've located 2 of our outlying colonies. We evacuated in time, but they're getting closer to finding Haven 7. We need to strike now. Chen manipulated the hologram, highlighting key defensive positions around the Kraxan hive. Their entire civilization is built on crystalline technology, all of it networked through quantum entanglement. Dr. Tanaka's original discovery about their resonance frequency was just the beginning. Thanks to Marcus's team, we now understand their entire system. Marcus stepped forward, bringing up a new diagram. Their quantum network is incredibly efficient, but it's also their weakness. A precisely calibrated pulse, delivered at the right point, could cascade through their entire civilization. Every ship, every structure, every piece of their technology would shatter simultaneously. You're talking about genocide, Harrison said quietly. I'm talking about survival, Chen countered. They gave us no choice when they destroyed Earth. They've given us no choice in all the years since. It's them or us. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They had all lost everything to the Kraxan. Now they had a chance to end the threat forever, but the cost would be enormous. What's the plan? Harrison finally asked. Ken's eyes hardened. Operation Thunderstrike. We commit everything, every ship, every fighter, every weapon we've developed. The Phoenix will lead the main assault on their outer defenses while our stealth ships move into position. We only need to hold them off long enough to deliver the pulse. My squadron will clear a path, Aisha added. We've developed new tactics they haven't adapted to yet. We can keep their fighters busy. The next few hours were a flurry of preparation. Throughout Haven 7 and the other surviving colonies, humanity's remaining warriors made ready for what could be their final battle. In the Phoenix's hangar, Aisha walked along her squadron's fighters, now numbering 20 of the best pilots humanity had left. Remember your training, she told them during the final briefing. Remember Earth. Remember why we fight. But most importantly, remember to come back alive. The quantum jump into the Kraxan system was precisely calculated to avoid their early warning networks. When the Phoenix and its battle fleet emerged from quantum space, they were already within striking distance of the outer defense grid. All ships, battle stations, Chen's voice carried across the fleet comm. Launch fighters. Commence Operation Thunderstrike. Space erupted in chaos as hundreds of fighters poured from their carrier ships. The Kraxan response was immediate. Crystalline vessels of all sizes emerged from quantum space, their weapons already firing. The darkness between stars lit up with quantum beams and crystalline explosions. Aisha led Razor Squadron through the mayhem, their neural interfaces pushing both pilots and machines to their absolute limits. Target those defense platforms, she ordered. Clear a path for the stealth ships. The battle was unlike anything in human history. The Phoenix's main quantum cannon fired again and again, each shot shattering Kraxan ships with devastating precision. But the enemy adapted quickly, their crystalline technology shifting to new frequencies almost as fast as Marcus could adjust their weapons. We're losing too many ships, Harrison reported from the tactical station. The stealth team needs more time. Chen watched as another human carrier disappeared in a ball of quantum fire. Divert power from aft shields to the main cannon. Target their command ships. We need to keep them focused on us. In the midst of the battle, Cooper's voice cut through the chaos. Commander, look at their formation. They're not just defending. They're gathering energy for something big. Aisha saw it too. The Kraxan ships were arranging themselves in a complex geometric pattern, their crystalline hulls beginning to resonate in harmony. All fighters, break off. There. The space between the Kraxan ships suddenly warped, reality itself twisting as they channeled impossible amounts of energy. A wave of quantum distortion swept outward, catching several human fighters in its path. The ships simply ceased to exist, erased from reality itself. Status of the stealth team, Chen demanded. Almost in position, Marcus reported, his voice strained as he worked to keep the Phoenix's systems stable. But we got a bigger problem. That quantum wave. They're building up for another one. And it's stronger. Chen's mind raced through options. They were losing too many ships, too many lives. If they withdrew now, they'd never get another chance at the Kraxan heart. If they stayed. Admiral. Aisha's voice cut through her thoughts. I have an idea. That resonance pattern they're using, it's similar to their normal quantum network. If we time it right, we could piggyback our pulse on their own attack. Marcus finished, catching on. Use their weapon to carry our strike right to their core. But we'd need perfect timing. And someone would have to deliver the pulse from inside their formation. Aisha concluded. My squadron can do it. Chen closed her eyes for a moment. You understand what that means, Commander. Someone has to make sure humanity survives, Aisha replied simply. Razor Squadron volunteers. The next few minutes were a blur of desperate action. While the main fleet drew Kraxan fire, Razor Squadron executed a series of impossible maneuvers, diving through gaps in the enemy formation. They lost ships with each passing second, but the survivors pressed on, carrying their deadly payload closer to their target. Energy buildup at critical levels, Marcus reported. They're about to fire. Now, Razor Squadron, Chen ordered. Deliver the pulse. In her fighter, Aisha saw the Kraxan ships beginning to glow with building power. Her remaining pilots formed up around her, their quantum weapons charged with Marcus's modified pulse. For Earth, she transmitted and opened fire. The pulse struck just as the Kraxan released their quantum wave. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then reality itself seemed to scream as the two forces met, twisted and combined. The pulse rode the wave directly into the heart of the Kraxan network, amplified beyond anything they had planned. The effect was beyond devastating. Starting from the central hive and spreading outward at quantum speeds, every piece of Kraxan technology began to vibrate at its resonance frequency. Crystal structures shattered, ships broke apart, and defensive platforms crumbled into dust. Their entire civilization, built on quantum-linked crystal technology, tore itself apart in a cascade of destruction. Multiple quantum signatures destabilizing, Marcus reported, his voice filled with awe. It's working. It's actually working. The few surviving human ships watched in stunned silence as their enemy of 6 years simply ceased to exist. When it was over, only scattered crystalline debris remained where the mighty Kraxan Empire had stood. Hours later, after rescue operations had recovered what remained of Razor Squadron, Chen stood in the Phoenix's observation deck, watching the debris field drift past. Harrison joined her, looking older than she'd ever seen him. Was it worth it? He asked quietly. Chen thought of Earth, of all they'd lost, and of all they'd sacrificed to reach this moment. We survived, she said finally. We proved humanity can't be erased so easily. Now we can rebuild, expand, make sure we're never caught unprepared again. And what do we tell future generations about this day? Chen turned to look at him, her expression both proud and haunted. Tell them the humanity rose from its own ashes. Tell them we faced extinction and chose to fight back. But most importantly, tell them to remember both the cost of war and the price of victory. As the Phoenix began its long journey home, the debris of two civilizations drifted through space, one destroyed by aggression, the other transformed by necessity. Humanity had survived, but their victory carried a weight that would influence their development for generations to come. The war was over, the time for healing, for rebuilding, for ensuring such destruction would never happen again, had begun.